A couple of days ago, I received a DM from a longtime fan and friend of the channel, Computer Robots, and he suggested that I talk a little bit about a new game that is coming out in March of next year. Now, granted, I had seen a little bit of information about this game, but never really took a lot of time to investigate what the game is about and how it functions. But I do think that it is something that is worth talking about, because after going through the information that is currently available to us and the limited gameplay footage that is available, I think that there's a lot here to talk about. I, of course, am speaking of Midnight Suns, a new multi-platform game that, again, is set to release in March of 2022. And to be completely candid, there's a lot of really intriguing things going on with this game. And for the most part, what I've seen, I really, really like. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to know about this game and whether or not it's going to be worth your time and money when it eventually comes out. So I've made a couple of points of things that I want to touch on about Midnight Suns. And if you want more information, they have a Twitter that you can go check out. They have multiple different interviews, and they will continue to release information regarding the game as the launch date comes closer. So the biggest thing that you need to know about Midnight Suns is that it's being developed by 2K and Firaxis Studios. And the really awesome thing that I learned while researching this topic is Marvel approached Firaxis, who is the developer of other RPG games, notably XCOM, and said that they really liked what they are doing with the XCOM series, but had some critiques or some feedback as to how the formula could be improved, as well as giving them access to characters within their canon. So the fact that Marvel, for lack of a better term, has sanctioned this game and personally requested that it be made is a really huge point in the favor of the developers of Midnight Suns. And I think that that is really an awesome thing to see. The other thing that I really like is it's not an exclusive title. It will be available on multiple different platforms. You can get it through Steam on PC. It'll be available for PS4 and PS5, Xbox Series X, S, and even Xbox One, as well as Nintendo Switch. So whichever platform you prefer playing on, you will be able to purchase this game and play it, which is another huge point in the developer's favor. Most of my viewer base knows me for Ultimate Alliance 3, and as much as I love that game, it is a Switch exclusive. So if you don't have a Nintendo Switch, you unfortunately don't have the ability to play that game. And I like the concept of a game being multi-platform. Midnight Suns will draw inspiration from the rise of the Midnight Suns comic book storyline. And the Midnight Suns series mainly deals with the supernatural, as there's a lot of magic and mysticism that plays into the events of that comic line. And so you should expect to see more of those elements that are not as familiar to Marvel fans who are a lot more into the MCU and the things that have been presented there. The extent of the mysticism and magic that we have seen has been through the likes of Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange and Shang-Chi, if you have gone to see that movie, which if you haven't, it's a really good film. It sets up a lot of things that will be coming in the future of the MCU, and that's about as specific as I'm going to get, as the film has just recently come out. But that is really what we'll be dealing with in this game as well. So it's interesting that it plays into a similar facet of what we're going to see in the popular media coming up, while at the same time being fairly independent from things that at least are being set up on the cinematic side. So similar elements, things to kind of pique your interest in that side of the Marvel Universe, while at the same time offering a fairly unique experience that has not been represented really at all up until this point in terms of the popular media and cinematography. Now, this game is going to be an RPG style game, and not only that, it is going to be a card-based RPG. And I personally don't have a lot of experience with card-based RPG, so that was initially where a little bit of my hesitance is. Particularly from a speedrunning standpoint, this game is going to be very interesting because there's going to be a lot of variability between the different playthroughs, and it's going to take a while for the community of this game to flush out really good speedrunning strategies based off of the large variety and the RNG that will inevitably go in to the speedruns of these games. I may dabble with it myself a little bit after the game launches and try and figure that type of stuff out, but we'll just kind of have to see how things go. Now, the one thing that I do think speaks to the credit of a card-style RPG as opposed to a traditional RPG, for example, Pokemon and Fire Emblem, is there is a lot more strategy that is required to a card-based RPG style game. Because with Pokemon and Fire Emblem and other games like that, you have some degree of influence over what goes on because you know exactly what your party is capable of. They have a definite move pool that you can choose, that you can pick and choose from, and basically go in knowing exactly what you would like to do in any given scenario. Whereas the card-based element of it, you're going to be dealt a random assortment of abilities and skills that you can use in each round of combat. And there may be turns where you only have one option available for a certain character in your party, as opposed to other rounds where they will have a lot more options of things that they are able to do when combating against your opponents. So in terms of strategy, it's going to be a lot more involved than your traditional static moveset and move pool, which is going to be interesting, but I don't think that that is a problem. If anything, it really kind of adds to the formula and breaks up the monotony of a traditional RPG when it comes to the combat more specifically. Midnight Suns will have some microtransactions, but the developers have confirmed that the microtransactions will be for cosmetics only. There's not going to be a loot box system that gives you access to better moves, better characters, better gear. It will purely be cosmetic changes to the characters, which is my preferred method of playing these styles of games. It really sucks a lot of the fun out of games if paying real money is directly correlative to succeeding in terms of the game itself. It really is disengaging to me, and I know that there are people that prefer that type of game style where you do pay to get the best stuff. I have to disagree. I've played a lot of different games that use both different types of mechanics, both pay to win and cosmetic only adjustments, and I have to say that I have a lot more fun when everyone goes in on the same base level and doesn't have to work harder because they chose not to spend real life money on additional features. So a huge point in the favor of the developers for that. In terms of the story, we don't know a whole lot, and I think that that's good because it will allow you to have more of a genuine experience with the game. The things that we do know is that the protagonist of the game is the first customizable character in any mainline Marvel video game. It's a character that you will be able to set up however you will, and this character will also have a direct personal connection to the villain, that being Lilith, who is a very large-scale supernatural mystic and magical villain. So in this particular instance, the protagonist is the offspring of Lilith and has access to similar powers, and ultimately was one of the few characters that is able of standing up to the villainy of this character, and really what's going to give you the option to turn the tide of the catastrophic events that she is set to unleash over the course of the game. And it's also interesting because within that character, you'll be able to choose whether or not you use abilities that are more light-based, which focus more specifically on support, buff, healing, and other beneficial effects for yourself and your team, or if you want to focus more on dark type attacks, which are more destructive and tend to have some negative trade-offs. Again, we don't have a whole lot of information about how that works and what it looks like at this point in time, and I would rather be pleasantly surprised as to how that functions once the game actually comes out. We do know that at launch there will be 12 characters, not including the main protagonist, so I guess a total of 13 characters. And at this point in time, we know out of those 12 that we will have Wolverine, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Captain America, Robbie Reyes, Ghost Rider, Blade, Captain Marvel, Magik, and Nico. And Nico is probably the one that I'm the least familiar with. She's from the Marvel Runaways side of comics. And based off of that list, we'll have 2 other characters that are available at launch. And that was the specific phrasing that was used by the developers, is that we will have 12 playable characters at launch, which insinuates that there will be more characters added later on. And based off of what they said in terms of the microtransactions that the game will have, I'm led to believe that the characters will be free DLC updates as opposed to characters that you can pay for down the road. I could be mistaken, but at least for the initial launch of the game, that is the way that things are set up to work. And really the last notable thing that I wanted to mention from the different interviews that have gone around is that between the combat installations of the missions that you'll be going on, you'll be able to build personal connections with the team members and unlock additional benefits, whether that's stronger attacks, cosmetics, other things. And the end goal of your relationship with any of these characters is to unlock their Midnight Sun outfit, which does unlock a larger, more powerful attack for those characters. And we've seen a couple of those animations in some of the promotional materials so far, so it'll be really interesting to see how that works. And I really like the gold on black design of those Midnight Sun costumes as well. So a lot of really good things coming out of this game that has me quite excited for it. And although I'm hesitant at the prospect of a card-based RPG, again, mainly based off of the fact that I don't have any personal experience with that type of a game, I don't think that it's going to steer me away. And if I enjoy this game well enough, I may consider exploring the XCOM line of games as well. But what do you think about this game? Do you think it's going to knock it out of the park? Are there things that you have reservations about? Or is this something that's just kind of forgettable and you're not going to really look in too much further? I am very interested in hearing what your thoughts are in the comments down below. And I think it's safe to say that you should expect to see some videos about this game here on this channel once it finally releases next year. But thanks again for your time. If you've made it this far into the video, make sure that you leave a like and don't forget to subscribe, as I provide daily variety content of the Marvel sort as well as many other games on PC, console, and mobile. So with all that being said, thank you for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.